Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey in Your Own Backyard. I am Rob, your host, and Carter here as always. How you doing, Carter?
Doing well, man. Ready to dive into some French spirits.
Man, you're just letting it out of the bag real quick. I guess it's in the title.
I mean,
everybody
yeah.
knows. Everybody knows. It's in the title.
Surprise.
Yeah. Darryl Bowman back with us. We haven't had you on for a long time. Good to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
And we're talking about a subject. I mean, we all three of us, I think, would agree. We like whiskey. We like wine. Would it be fair to say this kind of merges both those worlds a little bit?
It does.
Yes.
Since,
Bridges the gap.
Since cognac is wine. So, yeah.
It's made from wine.
It is.
Distilled, where most wines aren't distilled. So, I mean, you can explain it better as we get into this, but
Yeah, sure.
Cognac is going to be the topic tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you define cognac? Is cognac is it a brandy, or is cognac actually the drink and brandies aren't cognac because they're not in that region of France? How does that work?
Sure. So all cognac is brandy. So
Okay.
similar to how all bourbon is whiskey. Not all whiskey is bourbon, same thing. So
Okay.
not all
Right.
brandy is cognac.
Okay, so where did brandy? What's the history? Do you know any of that history?
Brandy is probably one of the oldest
It is.
spirits on planet Earth. I mean, really, because all it is fermented fruit and distilled. So, I mean, you know, you look at the elephants in Africa, right, that eat the fermented fruit, you know, off the ground. And, I mean, cultures have been basically taking that mash and heating it up, essentially, and distilling fermented mash for centuries. Cognac is just a much more refined process.
So, and it's one of your favorites. I mean,
I started on
things
cognac.
to drink. I'm not talking about brandies. I'm talking about just things to drink in general.
Cognac's my jam. I probably know more about cognac than I know any other alcohol, for sure.
Okay, well, what do you got, Carter? Any question off top that you want to ask?
Okay, so I did some research, you know. Forgot all my notes, of course, but that's okay. From what I understand, now you tell me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the brandy was created because there's wine-producing regions. People were shipping wine to other regions, and it was turning into vinegar. So they created the process of making brandy to fortify the wine so it can make the trip. I mean, that may be one of the beginnings, but that's what I heard is some of the beginning.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at port.
I was just going to say that reminds me of port.
People have been, finding ways. I mean, beer's the same way. It's how IPA started, right? I mean, you had the higher alcohol content to make that trip, and distilled wine is really no different. And so, I mean, that it's you have mass quantities of product out there, and how do you make it last?
Yeah.
Okay, so cognac, growing up, I'm going to age myself a little bit here. You know, I watched MASH growing up, and it was always Winchester who would get that bottle of cognac sent to him. And I always thought of cognac, wine as well as that kind of that high-class beverage. But cognac, what I thought, a whiskey, and I don't know if it falls into the whiskey category, does it?
In what way, I guess?
I don't know. I mean, how do you classify cognac? Is it not a whiskey? It's just a brandy?
Brandy is the class.
Okay,
I would say.
brandy is the class. Okay,
it's just it's a aged distilled alcohol.
Yeah, and I mean, like cognac is very specific. It's a very specific term for brandy. It's
it's the region.
Brandy is like
region.
whiskey.
Yeah. Okay.
Brandy and whiskey are what I would call the same family, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I always thought of it as that high class kind of. You had to be either well-to-do or you had to be sophisticated to appreciate cognac.
Yeah, I think of kind of the ladies' man from SNL.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I think about wine in today's culture and in our society, I think that snobbiness, if you will, has come off the wine world. I think
Sure.
I see younger people drinking wine. When I was growing up, it was just the I don't want to say older, but 40s plus were drinking wine. The younger people weren't. But I see so many people drinking wine at a younger age, whiskey, bourbons especially at a younger age. Do you see this trend with cognac as well, that brandy's becoming more popular?
I think that maybe in Houston we're a little spoiled.
Okay.
We've got a lot of diversity here. We've got a lot of people that have backgrounds in various food and restaurant industries that have traveled and bring those tastes here, right? So I think we're spoiled. I think nationally, no. I don't think cognac is a young person's drink.
Okay.
I think I'm definitely in the minority. And as more people are getting into finer things, right? I mean, the world's shrinking, but it's definitely not reaching a popularity, like bourbon or anything, or whiskey and anything like that.
I didn't know if you saw that trajectory.
Some might actually like that. Keep it on the shelf.
Yeah. And some of the stuff we're going to go through tonight, and I'll talk more about prices and everything, but after we taste through, I'm really looking forward to hearing what y'all think, how it stacks up to some of the, the all-stars of like the bourbon and whiskey world.
So like BTAX and things
Absolutely,
like that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys think because, like Carter said, I don't want this stuff coming off the shelf. I don't want that popularity.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I will say, just to interject, is in the cocktail scene, cognac is
used a lot.
It's used often. I mean, if you're making like a New Orleans cocktail, like a Vieux Carré or a Sazerac or like a sidecar, one of the classic cocktails.
And Grand Marnier is cognac, right? Has cognac in it.
It's brandy. I knew that.
It's a brandy. Yeah, it's not a. I don't.
Okay,
think
not
it's
a cognac, but it's just a brandy. Okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, like I think, like in a sidecar, you actually use Grand Marnier and you use cognac.
Oh wow!
And you're gonna know from this episode that I do not speak French well.
I will pronounce the French words.
There you go.
Anything old world, Carter, you should know by now. I don't pronounce well. Well, I want to dive into let's get into cognac. This is a region we're going to talk about, and there's a lot of things that, like wines or any other spirit, there's rules that apply to making it a cognac one, but making it, say a cru or something like that. So and I think part of that is grapes that have to be used and things like that. So can you go through and kind of tell us how that process works?
Absolutely. So cognac is made strictly from white grapes. So it has to be 90% of 90% makeup of 3 grapes, and it can be all of one of those. It can be 2 of 3, whatever. But 90% has to come from Ugni Blanc, or in the Italian world, that's Trebbiano, Folle Blanche, and Colombard. So that makes up the 90%, and then 10% can be Folignan, Jurançon Blanc, Méliès Saint-François, Select, Monty, or Semillon. So 10% makeup of those other grapes, and all white grapes.
I probably would have pronounced all those grapes in a totally different way, and you wouldn't even know what I was talking about.
I don't.
I would have said them exactly how you did.
Yeah,
no doubt.
You've got it from here on out, man.
So
go ahead.
You mentioned something when we first poured these cognacs, and I need to break that habit because with wine and whiskey, I always have that habit of swirling. Mm-hmm. You said no swirling. No,
you don't need to swirl cognac, and that's straight from the Big Four, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But if you tour their facilities, they'll say there's you don't need to swirl. So cognac's not made to swirl, and in fact, they'll tell you cognacs. Some cognacs are actually made to be drank with ice.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And if we're this isn't a racial comment at all, but like in China and Russia, they drink tumblers of cognac with dinner.
Really?
So we've associated cognac to be an after dinner drink, and they are drinking glassfuls, to the top,
with
full
dinner.
of cognac with dinner. That's absolutely.
So
that's their biggest market of cognac is Russian and Chinese.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but a lot of people. I mean, obviously, anybody who's listening to the show knows I'm married to a Russian, but a lot of people think vodka. That's like what Russians
drink.
I thought.
thought.
No, the number one spirit in Russia is brandy. Cognac,
really,
but and when we start to get into the La Rose here, I'll talk a little bit more about that, and who they really cater to.
Okay, so is there another level below cru for cognac, or is it everything has to be made to that kind of standard?
So once you have those grapes, there are 6 areas of cognac. Okay. So cognac is the overall, I'll just say appellation or region.
And then there's some sub-regions within there.
Within cognac, appellation was so cognac's the region, and then there's 6 appellations within cognac. And so you have a Grand Champagne, which is your perceived, and I'll talk a little bit more about the marketing aspect of each appellation, but you've got Grand Champagne, then Petit Champagne, Borderie, Fimbois, Bonbois, and Bois Ordinaire. And the marketing of those areas really came from Remy Martin. They're the ones that really started hyping, marketing that Grand Champagne was the cat's meow, right? And it's really based on soil types. So, just like certain wine, like Bordeaux, right? Like you've got the different climates for whether you're getting ocean,
Premier Cru, Grand Cru.
I mean, it really based on soil, sun, and everything else. Whereas there's no different from Cognac and those regions. So
okay, that was going to be a question I had. So when we talk about wines, where it grows dictates the quality of the fruit, and the quality of the fruit is what drives how expensive that wine eventually will be.
Sure.
That's the same thing in Cognac.
Yeah, and the soil types of those areas are very different. With like Grand and Petit Champagne, it's really like a shallow clay limestone and chalk.
Okay.
And then you've got Borderie, which is like clay and flint. Fimbois is like a red clay, limestone, and stone mix. Then Bonbois and Bois Ordinaire, that's sandy, which is the least desirable type of soil for Cognac grapes.
Okay, so as a consumer, when I initially hear the names of these, appellations, I'm thinking anything with the name Champagne is going to be higher and better. Is that a bad assumption on my part?
No, I mean, we're going to taste some Grand Champagnes that are going to absolutely blow you away, but that's not necessarily the rule of thumb. I mean, okay. you could find, a Petit Champagne that's better than a Grand Champagne. You can find, we're going to taste a cast strength Borderie tonight that, you may like more than some of these Grand Champagnes.
Because the way you were, talking about each of these appellations and the soil types that are different, you're going to get a different kind of profile in what they produce. Yeah. And that makes me think it may not be any, less quality. It's just going to be a different profile, two different grape varietals, like Cabernet and a Malbec or whatever, can be both fantastic, but they're different.
I would think too. I mean, just with aging too, it's going to matter. One grape I guess they all age great, but like one may hold age better than another. I don't know. But we're
going to ask the expert.
Yeah, we're going to ask the expert here.
No, like I said, like for Cognac, that limestone, that chalk, that's really what drives a better quality. But then, like many things, you've got the barrel that it's aged in. You have the atmospheric conditions and where that barrel is stored. If you walk into like Remy Martin's cellars, it's just full of cobwebs and it's damp.
I bet.
And then you walk into someone else's and it's more modern and like more well kept, and you're going to get completely different results.
Well, look, we're starting to get into that area, but before we do, let's talk a little bit about, because I thought it was very interesting reading about the fermentation process.
Sure.
And I was a little surprised on what the alcohol levels are when these go into the barrels, and then eventually what it comes out at. But go ahead.
No, so they have a very strict time frame of when you can actually make cognac, and so that runs from October 1st to March 31st.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so the reason is that obviously cognac is made from wine, so you don't just throw grapes and heat them up and distill that. You make wine first, and so you're actually not really making cognac until probably November, December timeframe, because you're making wine. You're harvesting and making wine in October.
So they're getting grapes, they're pressing them just like a winemaker would.
Everything is the same.
Okay.
Right?
So I've heard too, and this is just my limited knowledge, they're looking for a higher acid content in the grape, that they're trying to harvest at the time when there's a higher acid content. Is that accurate?
I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm
sure it has something to do with
it's something I did a little research. Not that I'm an expert. I just
I cannot deny or verify.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm sorry.
But I guess the point I was saying is what I was trying to make is like when you harvest wine versus when you harvest cognac, there's got to be some different characteristics to the grape that you're looking for and during that harvest time.
Yeah, so most wine is harvested starting in September, and like late harvests will have more sugar. So it may be an acid, it may be sugar, it may be a variety of things. But yeah, cognac grapes are harvested later in the season. But yeah, I mean you're pretty much making wine in October, and then and with cognac it's a 2 distillation process.
Yeah.
When the first distillation process, it cannot be more than a 10,000 liter still.
Okay.
Has to be copper.
Yep.
And so it'll distill the first time through that, and then the second distillation cannot be more than 2,500 liters.
Oh, really?
Correct. And then once you've distilled that, that's not cognac yet. Cognac doesn't happen until you blend and marry those 2 distillation products.
And it has to be in a certain type of cask?
It has to be in a French oak.
French oak, yeah.
It's the same as a Limousine cask?
So Limousine is a forest in France.
Okay.
And that produces 2 oaks. Here, I have that somewhere. Where are you? It's Quercus robur and Quercus petrea.
Oh, okay.
Would you know if he said that wrong?
No.
Okay.
But yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that's just a very popular. So they'll say Limousine cask. It's just French oak.
Okay.
And that's from the Limousine forests in France.
And so these barrels, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I guess they can vary in size, but the barrels that I've seen of cognac are quite large compared to regular whiskey barrels.
Right. And the biggest reason for that is the aging time. We talked a little bit earlier about, cognac being more refined. There's some shitty cognac and shitty brandy out there. I mean, like, I'll be honest, there's cognac. I would say, like, your average low-end whiskey or bourbon is better than your low-end cognac.
Buck 8 is better than the low end.
100%.
Really?
It's like gasoline. It can be really, really bad.
Okay.
Then there's others that are good. That's why I'm excited with that first one to see what y'all say, and we'll talk through that. But there's some really terrible stuff out there.
So
I believe it.
When we see cognac, we always see, and I say what I've seen. I'm not that experienced in it, but it's always a lower proof, 80 to 86, kind of in that range. Typically around 80, but sometimes a little bit more. Do they ever make? I mean, we were talking about this. Do they make any kind of their version of a cask strength or something that might be, in the 90s or closer to 100?
Oh yeah,
they do. Okay,
we're gonna drink a the Bordeaux I brought is 114.
Oh, there we
Oh,
go.
well, there you go.
So we're gonna drink a pretty high proof. But like we were talking about the barrels, cognac doesn't need proof to be good, and you're gonna see that when we drink the vintage cognacs.
Okay.
It just doesn't need it. And that's something that sometimes, like, bourbon and bourbon especially might need. And it's just because it's a different spirit. But again, that comes to the barrel size. You don't want a small barrel with cognac because it might be in there a really, really long time.
Yeah. Well, when we, when we did a barrel pick at Maker's Mark, and we got to look at a piece of French oak and had a piece of an American oak and holding them, the differences in density are just substantial. The American oak is very dense.
Yes.
And the French oak seems light. It's
Almost like a balsa wood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's wild. So that's interesting.
Okay, one thing I did read and I thought was very interesting is the yeast they use for when they put it in to eat up the sugars in there to get the alcohol have to be native to that region, and it has to be a wild yeast, which I thought was very interesting.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
So I don't know. I guess it makes a difference to what's produced from that region, but it seemed very curious to me. Because,
I wonder if they cultivate it and keep it.
That's what I was wondering, because that's what you hear with whiskey distilleries. They keep that kind of growing and going, but this has to be. They said wild, and I don't know exactly what that means.
Yeah, I don't either.
That's very French. It's a very French thing. I mean, Yeah, I mean, look at Four Roses. I mean, they bring in yeast from all over the place. I mean, whatever.
Yeah,
It's just another. The Europeans are big on every little rule, right? I mean, all these little specialties. So they just don't want people to recreate what they're doing.
There's got to be though some consistency to it. Like maybe it's a yeast found in the wild in that area or something like that. But you've got to have some consistency because that yeast is going to mutate.
Yeah.
And over time.
So as we keep talking about this, Darryl, I want everybody who listens to kind of get an idea of what to expect when they drink cognac. So some people are wine people, some people already drink Scotch or bourbon, and we like both of those. But this we already kind of mentioned earlier that it marries those two worlds together a little bit. And I don't know how I would describe the flavor. I mean, I get that kind of that grape wine, but how do you describe what you get on this? Because I think it's fantastic. The nose is fantastic, and then on the palate, it's just a very pleasant drink to have.
I think it's the most versatile spirit out there, honestly. You can have everything from rich, like butter, creams, to nuts and hazelnuts, and then it'll morph into walnut and pine nut, and then you get wood. You get old barn, you get grass, hay, you get flowers, fruit. I mean, everything from apples to raisins. It's just so. It's like wine. It's very. I mean, obviously, it's like wine, but to me, it's an evolved Scotch in terms of the realm of possibilities. I mean, I love bourbon, but bourbon has a limit. Bourbon has a limit.
Yeah, I think it's a smaller lane
to what it can do and the complexity. And as what we finish with tonight, the last two that we try, I don't think you have ever tried anything like these.
Oh, I know I haven't.
I doubt I have either.
And I mean, just as a spirit in general, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your faces.
So one thing I was gonna,
Hey, stop swirling.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. It's a habit.
It's a bad habit. Damn it. But like one of the questions I had is, you've got Armagnac, or how do you say it, Armagnac, or like I don't know.
Armagnac.
Yeah. So you've got, I guess it's a different region in its own region in itself, and it's classified as brandy. But I see a lot of vintages on Armagnac as opposed to cognac. And is that the standard? Are there vintages?
Is that because single vineyard versus blended?
It's harvest. So the last three we're going to do are vintages. They're single harvest.
Okay.
So they might be different blends of different barrels, but they have to be from that harvest of that
from
year.
the same harvest.
I gotcha.
Okay.
But
I gotcha.
like the VSOP we're gonna do, the Bordeaux, like they're blends, and they can be from different years. And if you typically don't see age statements on like a VSOP, an XO. They have to have a minimum, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But most of the time, you get stuff so that it's way older.
Yeah.
But you typically don't see age statements on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was something we noticed, but I think, we're going to get into this in a second, but to your point, the designation that's on there, VSOP or XO, gives you some idea of
Gives you the minimum.
age. The minimum. Okay.
Gives you the minimum.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've noticed too, just kind of diving into it a little bit, that if you look up the particular, XO, whatever, you can find what the minimum year is for that producer, that they put into the bottle.
Absolutely,
that it's just not stated on the bottle,
Right. But to be in that classification, there's one minimum, but that producer could still, even though it's called an XO, doesn't mean that's the minimum age that's in there. It could still be something older.
Correct.
So how do you know what's the threshold? I mean, before we go there, go through these grades. What are these designations of VS, VSOP, and all of these?
So VS is very superior, and that's aged at least 2 years. That's your bottom of the rung, and cognac has to be designated as cognac. It has to be 2 years in French oak. VSOP, so very superior old pale. So that's where we're gonna start our journey tonight, and that's aged at least 4 years.
So I'm going to ask,
Yeah,
what is old pale? What is that?
color.
Is that all it is? Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
Then you have Napoleon, and that's aged at least 6 years. Extra old. So XO went through a change in 2018. It used to be, I think, 8 years.
Now it's 10, right?
It's 10 now.
Okay.
That changed in 2018. So,
and when we say aged, we're talking about the youngest, because it's blended. The youngest cognac in that blend has to be that age.
That's correct.
Okay,
that's correct. And then you have XXO, so extra old. That's at least 14 years. And then finally the vintages. And like I said, those are single harvest.
So do you ever see an XXO on a shelf?
Yeah, I've seen XXOs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't looked a lot, but that's one. I've always seen the XO and the VSOP seem to be the two that stand out to me.
It seems like they can play a little, I mean, you can play a little fast and loose with it, like not saying that the minimum it's ever going to go below the minimum, but it could go above what the standard is for that.
Well, I mean, I think you're kind of saying what's the threshold from, what's the years to, I guess it's a minimum. If you hit that minimum for extra old, then
so
you're reclassified.
Once you're 14 years
Okay.
and you're youngest in the blend, that's what counts.
It just reclassifies you.
And
Okay.
so, and all this is done under legal supervision. So, we'll when they do these, they typically have lawyers on site validating that they are actually blending from what they're saying they're blending. Like these vintage ones, for example, when they're bottled, a lawyer is on site and certifies.
Really?
Absolutely. They're wax sealed, and they're certified with like letters that they are indeed. You are getting for example, 1973. You are getting that single harvest in that bottle.
That's cool.
So it's a very strict process, and I mean they can't just like make stuff up.
Yeah.
Well, a term that I've just recently, probably in the last year and a half, 2 years, started hearing more in the whiskey world. You always hear master distiller, but something that's become more known, or at least I've seen it more, heard about it more, is the master taster at these distilleries. And reading about cognac, that seems to be something that's been around for a while, that when you're blending, that master taster is the one who really puts these blends together and has that palate of what is good and what is not good.
It kind of seems like, too, I mean, well, if you think about it, some of these cognacs are over 100 years old. Some of the stock. So the person who distilled it may not even be alive.
Well,
100%. I mean, there's Leroux has some stuff from when Napoleon was around.
Really?
In glass jars. Yeah. I mean, large glass containers.
Yeah.
Called
bonbons?
Damijohns. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Damijohns. So
Told you, I can't pronounce.
That's Missouri, baby.
no, once
there you
they're,
go.
yeah. But cognac, once you pull it out of the wood, I mean, it's done. And from a vintage standpoint, they typically don't, most reputable places will not age longer than 70 to 75 years. So you might have a blend that's 200 years old, but there's, so Richard Hennessy, for example, like the Hennessy, it's a little misleading when they say, 200 years old. It's not necessarily in that barrel 200 years old. It might have been distilled 200 years ago in glass. I mean, if it's in a barrel, there may not be a lot of that left.
They kept that stock there available to blend with.
Yeah, so it's a little misleading, but you won't see vintages that are going to be bottled longer than 75 years ish in wood.
Yeah, I was reading something when I was looking this up, and they said typically between 4 to 5 decades, the wood starts losing any influence on the alcohol. Is what I was reading.
Yeah, I mean it's like anything else. I mean, it's going to change, but it just like you said, that French oak is not as dense.
Yeah,
it's not going to impart as much, and really, time is the bigger influence on cognac than the wood.
Yeah.
So once we think about wine, it always changes, even in the bottle. Whiskey, we say once it's done, it doesn't age anymore in the bottle. Wine continues to evolve and change.
Sure.
Cognac, kind of the same way?
Yeah, once it's out of the wood, once it's out
done.
of the barrel, it's done. So that's why you've got, 200-year-old stuff in glass.
Okay.
It's done.
It's done.
Is there any rebarreling of the spirit? Meaning like you put it into a barrel, you rebarrel it. I've heard that happens sometimes
in cognac. Really?
Cognac. But
like
I don't
into
know.
a different French oak.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're like I don't think they're strict. Like because if once you take bourbon out of a barrel and put it into another barrel, it's not bourbon anymore.
Yeah, right.
I don't think cognac has that restriction.
Yeah. That may be totally made up, but I think I look.
No,
at something like that.
I don't think that's because cognac can age so long. I don't think that there's that restriction, and you probably do have wood issues over time because, like you said, it's not as dense, it's not as hardy.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, I finished what we had in the glass.
Oh my gosh, I haven't even had a sip.
Okay,
Have you not really?
No. Okay, so I mean, I'll talk you guys through. Do you want a little bit more? And talk you through it.
Okay.
So, I'd like for you to try this. Tell me how much you think. How much you think this is? Price wise, we'll kind of do that little dance as we move through. So, this is a Marquis de Lafayette. It's a VSOP. This is a blend of various ones. For this one, they spend 14 to 16 months in new oak casks, and then they're transferred to older casks. So to your point, yes. So, but they're not doing it from a health standpoint of the wood. It's just, this is just their process. So 14 to 16 months in new oak, and then they're transferred to older casks for up to 5 years. So you're actually going to be getting a older VSO. I mean, and you're not getting the minimum VSOP.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just in between that 4 and that 6.
Boy, I tell you, the characteristics that I think of when I think of cognac always hit me in the face. But maybe that's just because I don't have the refined nose, but the raisins and the honey.
Yeah.
That
raisins big time.
That really hits.
And what I love about cognac is when you stick your nose in, it like burns. Good cognacs will burn your like sinuses, like they make your eyes water. Like this one to me,
a little bit.
Like not as much as when we get into some of these other ones, but
I definitely get the burn if you take a big sniff of it.
Yeah, get you in there. And now,
it's also got some nice orange notes to it. I like that.
Yeah, and so for a VSOP, I think this is absolutely wonderful. This is an excellent starter cognac for somebody that's really wanting to get into it. I haven't found it in Texas, but this is readily available in Louisiana. It may be available here. It may be in Total Wine or something, but I have not found it.
You're giving us some clues when you ask us to guess price now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a guess?
$40.
I was going to say $49.99.
Yeah, $35, $40.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And
I would pay more than that.
I would too. But when you said VSOP, I was like, then my brain started going in a different direction.
Now, to me, the nose is very nice. When you drink cognac, what I like to do, swish it vigorously.
Oh,
in
really?
your mouth. Yeah. Coat the front of your gums, bottom, and again, as we move into some of these other stuff, that finish, that tingling, that's going to last really long. And this is a wonderful expression. I mean, there's not a lot of VSOPs in my opinion that taste like this.
Yeah, this tastes
a lot better than the Hennessy VSOP that I use for mixing.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. And the price of like a Remy XO or a Hennessy XO, I mean, and some of their VSOPs, I mean, this is a steal. This is an absolute steal.
Yeah, so I can't believe that's $35. When you think cognac, again, I just thought higher end, but I still thought 50 was a low end kind of guess. But
I like how the finish has got kind of it does that orange thing, kind of like the orange peel kind of is on that finish, and that's really nice. I like that a lot.
There's a little bit of, to me, the only things that I'm not, like, if I have to pick out things that I'm not wild about on this one, it's a little grainy on the finish.
Mm-hmm.
Got a little bite, but that's going to be typical of a VSOP. It's not as well balanced.
So you don't typically want that bite on it.
The bite, yeah. So in cognac, you want
a Wade Woodard smooth.
Yeah, there we go. you want a very well-rounded. You with cognac, the way I describe a perfect cognac is it doesn't end. There is no end.
Mm-hmm.
And each drink is something new. And you start to see that a little bit here. You take your first sip, and that's the importance of the swishing.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I took a sip without swishing and then did that swish, and it was a whole different experience.
It's a completely, and that's the way you should.
Wow.
That's the way you should taste it. And each taste in cognac, you're going to pull different things. And again, as we move down the line here, you're going to see that expressed much more vigorously.
Now, I think that cognac in general, I mean, I'm a novice, but it does have a nice mouthfeel in general. Like it's a fairly like viscous type of.
That's what you want for sure.
And I like that. I like that when whiskey is like that. So
I also, thinking back to something you said earlier, Darryl, that cognac isn't driven by proof. We think about bourbons and we think, because it's diluted down with water, if you get a lower proof, that we think we lose some flavor or some characteristic to the whiskey. With this, what I really enjoy about it, I don't know what the proof is on this. What is this one?
This is 40%.
Yeah, get out of here.
Yeah.
And I'm not even trying to look for alcohol, or any of that in it. I'm just enjoying the expression itself, and I'm going. I know you said it's not, typically it doesn't have to be an after dinner drink, but all I keep thinking is after a meal, sitting outside on a nice fall night and having a glass of this with a nice cigar or something, I could see being great. Yeah.
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. In there are cask strength Armagnacs and cognacs out there. L'Encantada does a great job. Again, we've been spoiled in Houston with having access to that stuff. It's not that those are bad. It's not that those are high proof, so you're covering up flaws. It's just a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys have had L'Encantada.
Yeah.
When we get to these lower proof vintages, you're going to see why you don't need proof. We're gonna work our way up, and that's why I'm excited to do. We're gonna jump from a VSOP. We're gonna jump to Carter's XO here, and then we're gonna jump into this cask strength borderie,
which is going to be interesting.
Absolutely, and then we're gonna take a steep dive down back into low proof vintage land
and see if it holds up. I bet it will, but
yeah,
it really is amazing. I mean, you think 40% alcohol, it's going to be fleeting.
Sure,
it's not.
This lasts a solid 1 to 2 minutes on the palate, without a doubt. It's thin. This is thin, and to me, that's what makes a good entry level cognac. Mm-hmm. You've got a wide variety of notes and flavors here. Each flavor is different, but it's not. It's thin enough that an entry level person is not going to be overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. You use the adjective I was going to use. It's not going to overwhelm somebody's palate.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. And honestly, like the one that's coming into Ryan's, the Majesté, their VSOP, it's not going to have, I would say, the mouthfeel that this VSOP does, but it's going to have a tremendous flavor, and it's going to be thin. So it is the perfect entry level cognac for somebody.
Well, those listening that aren't in Houston, if you make your way, you can look for this bottle. But those who are, let's tell everybody what's coming. I mean, Ryan's Liquor is what you're talking about when you say Ryan's.
Sure. And
he's working with you on. Go ahead and tell everybody what you're bringing in.
No, it's Majesté VSOP. The Majesté XO, I think, is one of the best values in cognac out there on the market. And so my buddy Nick Chen, who's a part owner of Branded Spirits, who sources Majesté, gave me the opportunity to work with somebody here in Houston to get that barrel. So we just brought in a half barrel for now. So I think about 140 to 160 bottles.
ETA?
We're waiting on the neck tags still. Okay. So as soon as they come in, it'll get to market. But it's here. But it's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. And again, if you're an experienced cognac drinker, you're probably going to turn your nose up to it. But if you just want a very nice, easy drinking cognac for dessert or to start getting into cognac, it's absolutely lovely.
Price on this bottle that's coming?
I think it's like $35.
Oh my gosh! Well, that's
it's very inexpensive. $35 to $39 or something like that. It's very inexpensive.
So yeah, definitely be looking for that in the next 30 to 60 days. It should be
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, that'll be fun. All right, we want to dive into this next bottle.
Sure.
Carter, you going to open it up?
Oh, sure. Are we going here? Is that where we're going?
That's where we're going. Mm-hmm. So,
that's lovely.
Why? I mean, I'm trying to figure out how we get people excited about wanting to try cognac, because I think there's that perception of cognac, like we've talked about. It's that higher end, classy drink. It doesn't, and I think people start thinking expensive. You know, they hear cognac and they think pricey. It doesn't have to be, you've already demonstrated, super expensive to get into. When we talk about the guys who are already in the bourbon world, in that bourbon game.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, you know, they're spending $70, $80 for a craft bourbon.
I mean, if it's 7 to 10.
2-year-old bourbon, you know, or whatever.
Bourbon.
Yeah.
I mean, people spend, you know, on secondary $85 to $90 for Weller 107. That's 7 years old.
Yeah,
you know?
but I do think that most people, I think, are kind of like us. And when I say like us, I mean, when I got into wine, I enjoyed wine. I used to be into beer, and then that just kind of evolved to bourbon. And then now I've been trying more scotches, and I want to get into more cognac. And I think that's a journey that most people who get into these spirits nowadays are looking to do and kind of continue to evolve in the spirits that they enjoy and partake in. And I think cognac should be definitely on that list. Yeah.
The two things kind of hurting cognac is you've got the big four. So again, you've got Martell, Cavassier, Hennessy, and Remy. They have a very, very, very large market share. Mm-hmm. You know, in Kentucky, you know, you've got your big dogs there for bourbon, right? But there are a lot of people coming in to the market. Cognac, because of the time aspect, is the barrier to entry is quite large.
Oh, yeah.
You've also got the land. You know, you can make bourbon anywhere on this or on this continental, or 50 states, right? You can make bourbon anywhere. Cognac is a very, very limited space, right? And there's just a very large barrier to entry. So those big four have a large market share. They control the market. And so getting those smaller producers is a lot harder here in the U.S. Even as diverse and as amazing as Houston is for spirits and alcohol in general, there's not a lot of good places to pick up cognac.
Yeah.
It's just Specs. I mean, Specs is one of the, people know Specs all over the world. Like if you go to Europe, they know Specs.
Oh, really?
Absolutely, yeah. They know Specs because they buy so much. And even Total Wine, they don't have a large cognac selection. You have to go to very specialty stores. You have to go to Vegas. You need to go to New York. And again, it's not a racial thing, but you have a lot of Chinese and Russian business and tourism going to Vegas, going to LA, going to New York.
Yeah,
that's where you will find a very large cognac representation. Leroux, you can't get Leroux retail here, but you can taste it in Vegas.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
And I'll talk more about that, but that's the biggest problem with cognac and Armagnac. It's just it's so hard to get into that market.
Yeah. Well, I mean, age in the land. I mean, it's just
that alone, because it has to be there.
Yeah, that makes sense. But
the cool thing is unlike with cognac. So as long as everything is done there, if you and I go buy a barrel and bring it here and bottle and everything, that's still cognac.
So you make me think of a question to ask you. When you're doing cognac, I mean, obviously we talked about small region. And where they store these barrels, there's only so much space and the time we're talking about it takes.
Sure.
Do they skip vintages? Do they skip years?
Not everyone does vintages, right?
Or harvest seasons? Is there years they don't make anything because they're like, we don't got any room until we get rid of it?
No.
So they're making every year.
Man, so
I'm just thinking,
I'll go ahead and
store
skip
it?
to this story, but so with Leroux, Leroux, when you go there are Chinese and Russian businessmen. One, they built an entire chateau, like almost like hotel, just for their Chinese and Russian clients. They fly in. They have dedicated rooms in their cellars with pallets of cognac.
Wow.
They fly in, restock, grab what they need, and they fly out. The amount of cognac that's going to Russia and China is wild. And to other Asian countries as well. It's just wild. So they have no problem moving product. You're not moving the product here. You're moving it over there.
Yeah.
Just a substantial amount.
Well, I heard that one of the top consumers of cognac is Singapore.
that
they are wild about it. It's the #1 spirit in Singapore.
I didn't know that.
Oh, I'm telling you, funny story. We were down at one of the dining halls here in Chinatown, and they had a separate cordoned off room within the dining hall, and we were there about 2.5 hours, and 3 separate times, 3 men walked in with cases in hand of Hennessy into that room. They restocked. So I mean, you're probably talking, 200 plus bottles over that 2.5 hour mark went into that room. I mean, just crushing it, man.
Yeah.
Hey, you've obviously been to a lot of the places. We all like the food down there in Chinatown.
Yeah.
Have you been to the liquor stores that are there? There's that one right there by H Mart that has the Louis and all of that in the glass cases.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They have tons of cognac in there.
And
I never put it together until you're just now
Yeah.
saying
And
that.
they love it. That both the Russians and the Chinese and other Asian countries, they just eat it up.
Wow.
And, it's just a fact.
Okay, this cognac you haven't had, you said, Darryl.
No. So I've not
I've
had
not
it.
had it either.
Right.
I bought it for this episode.
So, do you know the proof? Do you know the proof?
I don't, but I'll guess after.
So yeah, go ahead and take a sip. So, what I'd like to do in this in this episode, in this tasting, is as we move from cognac to cognac, is one, start thinking about the differences, right, between each one. So this is an XO. So again, it's going to be a minimum of, now
it doesn't have the bite that the other one
this
had.
may be 8 years, depending on when. So this is probably 8 years.
Okay.
So the 10 years starts harvest of 18, right? So we probably won't start seeing the completely 10-year minimum till 2028, 2029, 2030, because that rule didn't go into effect until then. So any stock that was already in place
they could
at
still
the time, you're grandfathered in.
Okay.
Because they're already planning on making XO at that time.
So you're going to have to, people are going to ask what you're talking about, so they changed the rules.
Yeah, April of 2018.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So
Now, this one, I did do a little bit of research on it. I don't know the proof. But
the thing
enough.
The thing that stuck out to me initially taking it on the palate was the bite. We talked about the bite the first one had. This didn't have the bite that one had, to me.
It's got a finish.
Seems a little thinner.
So this might be blasphemy, and Carter, I don't want you to be offended at all. I think the VSOP had way more flavor.
Yeah, this seems a little thinner to me.
It does.
I would say the proof on this has got to be right at 82. It doesn't seem very high at all.
Yeah, it's 40% as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's what I'm saying. So don't be, and again, I'm not speaking ugly at all.
I bought an XO because I thought that would be something to bring.
No, the XO is wonderful because it allows us to step through. But people see Grand Champagne, right? And they're like, "Oh, that's Grand Champagne." So, if you don't mind me asking, how much was this bottle?
$100,
right?
Something like that.
So $100 for an XO versus this $35 VSOP, right? Yeah, I don't see a lot of difference between the two. What do you think?
I think that actually the astringency is a little higher in this than it was in the initial the VSOP that we tried. And now I like the nose a hair better on this one.
Very nice.
It's got kind of like a hazelnutty quality to it. It's very rich, but then the finish is lacking.
The finish is lacking, and just the explosion of flavor on the palate, I get so much more with the VSOP. I agree with you on the nose. I like this one on the nose. It doesn't punch me as much.
Yeah, and see, you can stick your nose all the way in there.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
Okay. Wait till we get a little further down the road, but no, I guess that's my point. Is it's marketing.
Yeah,
it's a lot of it is marketing.
Well, and I think to your point earlier, it's a region. People see Grand Champagne and just automatically think it's going to be really good because it's Grand Champagne versus what's the region for the $35 one we had that you brought?
It's a blend. It's a blend of
different
I
regions.
would say all of.
Okay.
I think it's I think it's all of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm even more impressed. When you said blend, I thought it was blend of different kind of plots within the same region, but I didn't know it was.
I don't hate this, but one thing I will say is that it's got a bit of a bitterness that I'm not a big fan of.
It absolutely has a bitter, and I'm glad you picked up on that. It right on the front, and if you take a big sip, swish it around, that's the first thing I get is that chalk bitter.
Yeah, it's
light on like the very almost like a lemon drop, right? It just right on the back of the tongue. It's just like a little bite.
It's got kind of almost more of an aperitif type of quality to it, in the finish. It's very interesting.
And again, but we're talking like most of the stuff you guys do on this podcast. You're talking insignificant. You're talking very small margins, right? This is still very good.
Oh, it's great.
It's excellent. It's just interesting to step through all of these and note these differences.
Yeah. Well, but I also always like to point out values. And to your point, we talk about it in whiskey a lot. We talk about it in wine a lot. Mm-hmm. Just because something costs $100 doesn't mean it's always better than something that costs $30.
And that's because you have Grand Champagne
written on the front of it.
Front, right?
But I still like this. I mean, I still think it's very, very good.
It's great.
Yeah.
I think it's very nice.
But I think, again, we've done this with whiskey a lot of times. We'll have blinds lined up in front of us, various pricing, all kinds of things, and they may all be good in their own right. If you were to drink them individually,
by themselves,
and just go, wow, that's great, that was really good. But then you line them up against, others in other whiskeys, and it's just, wow, this one is clearly the best,
Well, I say we take a quick break and kind of cleanse our palate because we're going to come back and go into something cask strength, right?
We are.
And then from that, we're going to drop back down into some vintage.
We are.
And then that'll finish up. But this is going to be a lot of fun. But we'll come right back and jump into those, and we'll see you in just a few seconds. Okay, we are back, and I know we're not supposed to get excited about proof. We already said when we talk about cognac, proof doesn't matter, but I'm really curious about a cask strength cognac. It's got me intrigued.
It's already so powerful, I'm curious.
So tell us about this one. It's in our glass.
Yeah. So this is a Grossman.
Say that again.
Sorry. It's Jean Grossman. And so what he does is source. He's a sourcer. So similar to Lincoln Tata and others.
Oh, okay.
So he goes around to smaller operations. So this one we don't know who the source is, but it's a very small producer, but it's an individual who's very well known in the cognac world.
Okay.
This is most likely distilled at one of the big four. So again, Martel, Remy, Hennessy, and Cavassier. One of those four most likely distilled it. But he got his hands on it.
So how often do you see the big four actually distilling product from all these other people?
Oh, I mean, they do it all the time.
All the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, to have two separate stills and to have that type of operation, most of these guys are farmers, and they go and they'll, once their stuff's done, they'll bring it back and just put it on site and forget about it.
Okay.
But this is from Bordeaux, which is just outside of Grand Champagne.
Okay.
So Petit Champagne and Bordeaux surround Grand Champagne.
Okay.
And this is on the kind of north to northwest side of Grand Champagne. But this Bordeaux is 114.6 proof.
Yeah, stick your nose in, Carter. You'll get the burn on this one.
And this is the number 80.
Not at all.
So I know people in the podcast can't see it, but on the front of the bottle it says number 84. So this is just a source. So 84 is just its numbering for that source.
Okay.
So
did you get this from overseas? Because I see 70 CO on there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got it in France and in a little store, a very nice spirit store. And the guy, assured me it was because I was grilling him. He's trying to sell it to me, and I was grilling him on a bunch of other stuff. And he knew what he was talking about, and I told him if I hated it, I was going to come back and find him.
You didn't go back?
No, it was it's very nice. So, this is I brought this because this is a cask strength, so much higher proof than some of the what we're going to move into after this. So, what you should probably notice right off the bat, you stick your nose in there, you're going to get hit real hard.
It gives you that burn that you were talking about earlier. You can't leave it in too long on this one.
No, it goes right into the olfactory.
Yep.
Your eyes start watering. And that's not a bad thing.
No, I kind of like that. It does kind of clear the sinuses a little bit.
It does.
Yeah. So here's a question for you as we're kind of nosing this and getting into this one. How important, or is it even important at all, is the glass that you use with cognac?
I would say cognac glasses and having the right glass for cognac is one of the most important aspects. I think there's a lot of things that glass doesn't matter, but this certainly matters. You want to get the big bowl. You want to trap the vapors. You want to trap the scent for that cognac. They're almost like heavy, right? And then when you stick your nose and then you suck them all in, it's like a drink in itself.
Yeah,
with just the nose.
It really is.
Absolutely. You know what? I'll make this comment. The last two that we tried definitely had that raisiny quality on the nose. That kind of thing. This does not so much.
No, this is heavy fruit to me.
That's what I was going to say.
Very, very heavy fruit. I get kind of medicinal cherry on the nose, and that the palate's really going to punch you.
I'm getting that orange for sure, like a lot of that citrusy quality to it on the nose.
I get a nice milk chocolate on the nose, and so I wouldn't. So two things similar to like wine, but this is I think very important for cognac. I would do your smells on the bridge of it, so the top of your glass and on the bottom, but that bridge is really going to give you some of the finer nose qualities.
The cognac hug is a little delayed, but it is a nice squeeze on this one.
Yeah, you swish this. Swish this one. It's going to be a little painful to swish,
I
but
bet.
it's very nice.
Whoa. Yeah, that goes for a while.
It does.
Yeah, that's what I say. It squeezes you pretty hard.
It's still going.
And when the thing that I think is very interesting about this one, because it's so, and this is to me quality. The Bordeaux is not going to be as a higher quality as some of what we're about to get into. So, to me, on the front, it's very, very tight. It's very astringent. It's kind of like a Band-Aid on the front, but then it mellows out as on the finish. The finish is very pleasant. But it's just not as well rounded. I would say it does not.
That I agree with that. And I was going to say, as much as I was intrigued to try this, and I do like it, from a cognac kind of what I want out of a cognac, my perception of what I should get in the glass. Maybe it's because I haven't had enough like this, but I almost think I enjoy the lower proof ones more for what I get as far as flavor and things like that, minus a little bit more of that alcohol punch.
Yeah, and that's my whole point is you don't need proof.
Yeah, you really don't.
Need proof, and we're about to get into that, and it's unnecessary, and that's why they water it down because you get so much flavor out of these cognacs.
One thing I'll say on this is that the nose translates very well to the palate. I mean, it's a very similar. It's not like whoa, big surprise when you hit the palate. But what I'll say is it's kind of singular noted. There's a lot, there's a little nuanced stuff, but it's really single noted, not terribly complex.
Nope.
Big bomb of that flavor.
I agree. I don't think it's wildly complex. I think it's a very specific drink. It's for I think a lot of alcohols like that, actually. I think this is meant for a kind of medium cigar to where you want the cognac to overpower the cigar.
Yeah, I like that assessment.
Yeah. And this is meant for what I would say some strong cheeses, and like
a little age, a little funk on them.
or like a very, I would say kind of like almost not a bitter dessert, but kind of maybe like a raspberry dessert. Something that's a little tart, that can kind of hold up to the power of the cognac itself.
Well, I know Rob's always been like a big big proponent of like wine is what you pair with meals. But I mean, I could certainly see cognac pairing with some items for sure.
Yeah, what he's saying is, and I'll just say it, I'm not a big fan of whiskey with food. I like to have my whiskeys while I'm prepping and cooking food. I like to have wine while I'm eating my meal. And
But
then
you
if
may be
we-
changing because
If we want to have a whiskey after dinner with a cigar out back or something, I'm fine with that. But I've just not gotten to me, a bite of food and a sip of wine go well together. I can't see, a bite of food and a sip of whiskey every time you're taking a bite of
But
food.
could you see a bite of food in a sip
This
of
is different,
cognac?
but this is made from grapes. This is wine, dude.
It was wine.
It was wine.
It
Yes.
was wine.
At
So,
one point in time.
That kind of
yeah.
backfired on you, didn't it?
I mean, I think my point's still valid. but go ahead, whatever. Keep believing what you want to believe.
Yeah.
But
What's
you can
what's
see
your
it.
take on that? You think whiskeys are a good food pairing beverage spirit?
The way I've always described it is I think whiskey is kind of like an appetizer finger food situation where
Agree.
you're not worried about the pairing. I think whiskeys pair well with things, but I like whiskey when I'm just like dicking around with you guys and we're talking and
Totally agree.
hanging out, finger foods, and just it's not the meal is not in the focus. It's the friendships and the hanging out.
Well, and I've not found that food changes the whiskey or whiskey adds anything to the
I
food.
agree. I think they
Wine,
go well together.
Some of them,
Yeah.
but wine can really
It modifies the whole meal.
absolutely.
100%.
I'll agree with you there. Wine does modify the meal, but I also think whiskey modifies the meal.
Interesting.
And
Well, you don't have to be right.
no, it's okay. You don't have to be right.
That's fair.
But anyway, I do think cognac has a place for sure. I mean,
Well,
I've heard. I mean,
you want me to get you a tumbler and a full glass of ice?
I am married to a Russian. I hear they do these things. But anyway, moving on.
No, all good.
All right, man. I cleared my glass because I'm
ready.
getting excited.
All right. So what we're going to step into now is House Leroux, who is my absolute favorite producer.
The all three. We got 3 bottles in front of us.
So we're going to start with a Petit Champagne. It's a 1990. This is actually a gift from Leroux because we've ordered so much in the past few months. So we got this, and then he sent me a 1978 or 1977, something like that, Fine Bois, which was, we had that over in Europe, and it was absolutely wonderful. My dad took that one, and I took the Open 73, so that's a good compromise. But so we'll start with the Petit Champagne 1990. So
Cool.
Is your glass ready?
Yep.
Okay. So vintage. Okay, so this is a single harvest.
Oh my god.
So this one's going to be different. This is 31 years aged.
Did you nosy yet, Carter?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So,
You can't tell by my pants over here. Like
I'm interested, and again, I'm interested to hear what you guys say because I already know
Oh wow.
quite a lot about these. But
the depth on that is just incredible.
Yeah.
Just on the nose.
So, what you should pick up right away is some butterscotch. Very rich on the nose. A little bit of caramel. You should probably
Get the caramel a lot.
Yeah.
Not just a little.
It's
it seems
very
to be
sweet on the nose.
Stupid swirling thing I'm used to doing.
It just on the nose smells more. I don't know if refine's the right word to use, but it seems just more sophisticated. Just
Do you pick up
just
the
impressive.
oak more on this? I pick up the like.
That's absolutely so. On the sweeter cognacs, to me, I pick up a lot of oak. And in Leroux, the world, it's very young. 31 years is young for their cognac. So, and then we'll talk about the next two here in a minute. But
so what cru does this come from?
Petit Champagne.
Petit Champagne. Okay.
So, what you're going to notice, I'm interested to see what you think on the palate.
Okay, I got to swirl that. I forgot to do that.
Much more refined. It's more mouth coating too. Actually, it's got. That oak does come out in that on the finish.
I think it has a great mouth feel, and I
Yeah.
think the flavors are really nice on the palate, and you don't get that bite. You don't get that. I hate to use the word smooth, but to me, it's just nice. It's very pleasant on the palate, and what I don't get is a big finish on this.
See, I think you guys are being polite. I don't think this one's very good.
Okay,
I think it's tight. It's bitter. I don't think it has a good mouthfeel.
bitter. I didn't get the bitterness.
Yeah, I don't. The 1990 expression is not in again because it's young.
Young, 31 years.
31
young.
years. Is
It's young. I don't think it's a good. If this was your first exposure to L'Heureux, I don't think you would be happy with it. And again, I personally
let's put it into perspective.
I brought this for a reason.
Let's put it into perspective. What does this sell for?
This one's $250.
Okay. Yeah. So it's an expensive bottle.
It's an expensive bottle, but
I get your point. At that price, what you're getting in the bottle.
do you think you get what is it? Almost 10 times more enjoyment out of that than that VSOP?
No.
Absolutely not.
And I miss the finish, and it's just a little thinner on the palate.
It is, but I think like coming from this particular bottle, the cast strength bottle, this is a lot more complex as far as the nose goes and some different flavors that you get from it. This is just very single note, and I think that maybe we'll just see how we go once we go down the line.
I think the nose on this. Do you not like the nose on this either, Darryl? Because I like the nose.
I think nose is pretty good.
Yeah, I think
the nose is great.
Okay,
I
I do
think
too.
the nose is a good expression of L'Heureux.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think it's very nice. And then, what I'm going to ask you to do is please make sure your glasses are clean and ready for this next one. So, as you guys are doing that, we're going to step into a 1973. It's 48 years old. And this is where...
Finally, something older than me.
This is where I think this is where we enter into Darryl's world.
Darryl's world.
Are you ready?
Yes.
So I want you to now with this one, I want you to do both the bottom and the top nosing. Make sure you do swish here. And I can pour you more. Don't worry about that. I have this. This is almost a full bottle, and I have a whole extra full bottle. So we're not too worried about that. I guess I should pour myself one.
Yeah, you help yourself, dude. Have a little.
Thank you.
You know, it has a brighter kind of nose to it. A little, you get that like
Spend some time with this one.
Okay.
Spend time with it. I know we're trying to, get this podcast done.
No. We're not in a hurry. These deserve taking the time and appreciating these the right way.
Give this time. Let this one kind of let it air. Let it sit for a second. L'Heureux. So L'Heureux just has, just an absolutely beautiful estate. Again, cognacs to where Napoleon was walking around, and hopefully in a couple of years, I think I'm going to pull the trigger and I'm going to get one of them.
Really?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
I'm going to do it.
Say the name of this producer again.
L'Heureux.
Do they distill and do their own product, or do they go to one of the big four?
They do their own. They do everything.
They do everything
it
in-house.
on the estate.
Okay, that's very cool.
And they have, so again, they've got Petit Champagne, Grand Champagne. They've got vineyards all over the place. They bought out Baron Gaston Legrand, who's an Armagnac producer. And I have that's my 1945 Armagnac.
Oh, wow.
Sick.
That I'm waiting to open in Germany in 2045.
Storming the beaches.
I'm going to do it in, what's that damn square where Michael Jackson hung his baby out the window? What gate? The Brandenburg Gate.
Okay.
Doing it right there in the square with an American flag tank top
American
in a
flag.
folding chair. It's going to be amazing.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Leroux, so they've been producing since 1785.
Wow.
And
That seems like a long time.
It's a long time, and they're between Cognac and I'm going to butcher this one, Angoulême, and so they're everything for them is in Limousine. So those oak casks, yeah. So
How did you come to stumble across these folks?
we found them at Vin Italy, so that's Italy's largest wine gathering and convention. And my dad actually, so I've been trying to get my dad into Cognac for a long time. Because I was always a Louis whore, and
Still are.
absolutely. And so my dad walked over there, and he wanted to try their Armagnac, and so the guy poured an Armagnac. My dad was loving it, and the guy's like, do you like Cognac? And my dad goes, no, I'm more of an Armagnac guy. And Leroux looks at him and says, no joke, he goes, Armagnac is for women, Cognac is for men. And if you know my dad, that's all you needed to say. And he's like, slams the glass. He's like, let's do it.
Inspiration. Let's go.
Alexandre poured my dad the thing we're gonna finish with this 1950, and my dad took one sip, and the next weekend he was driving to Cognac.
Really?
Which is like a 12 to 14 hour drive from where they were living.
Yeah, I was
wow.
going to say, at
'Cause
this
it
time
was-
you guys were living in Italy.
I was not. I was in the
your mom and
States,
dad.
but they were, and my dad was so overtaken by that one drink that he drove all the way there.
That's crazy.
So anyway, but yeah, so now it should be ready. So the vapor, you should be getting a much bigger nose now.
I got to try it.
Really swish that one around.
There's something different on the nose, and I'm trying to kind of figure out
Really
what I'm...
swish that one vigorously. Spend a lot of time in your mouth.
That's what she said.
Yep. I like that.
Yeah. Just wait. It's not done. Let this one sit. Really go in your mouth. And if you need more, I'll pour you some more so you can get that full. Really keep it there. And it should be evolving constantly. You should be getting all sorts of fruit on this one. This is a very heavy fruit yak.
Yeah, it comes across that way. A lot less on the
Raisins.
a lot less on the raisins.
I don't get the raisins hardly at all on this one.
On that, I get more of the fruit. There's I use this term all the time because I think when I get this flavor, I don't know what to say other than it has an almond extract type of like note to it that I freaking love.
It's like a pure. So whereas bourbon has like that, vanilla essence, like this is like a pure vanilla. A very rich, a very rich, thick vanilla.
I'm surprised by the color. It's quite light compared to some of the other things that we've had tonight.
For the age as well.
For the age as well. So, but as we know, like French oak, it doesn't really impart the color aspect quite as much.
Yeah. So is your mouth tingling?
Yeah.
All over.
Still,
Gums,
right?
everything. Just
And as you like try to dry your mouth out, you're going to get, and when you breathe out, you're going to get a completely different array of flavors.
It's like fireworks going off. There's sweet notes, bitter notes, fruit, all kinds of things.
So this is Todd Grube's favorite of all of them.
But just that sensation in your mouth, I didn't get that swishing any of the other ones like I am here, where it coats everything.
Everything.
Yeah, it really. I mean, it's just.
Let me pour you just a little bit more. I want you to do it one more time before we go to the 50.
Okay.
Just a time.
Yeah, that's it.
There you go. Just do that.
Ah,
Just really.
Yeah, I know.
used to-
It's a habit.
It
really,
is.
Oh, it's fine. You're not going to ruin it. Just completely swish it, coat the mouth.
You know, another thing that I'm. Do you get it's like cranberry kind of thing going
It's
on?
incredibly fruity.
That's good.
And be honest. Tell me what you.
But I'm still getting like, just on the back end, a little bit of like cocoa with chocolate or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's on the finish on the backside, which I like. It's kind of.
It is brighter though. It's brighter, but not in a bad way. It's just it's more like it's just different. I don't know, like of everything that we've tried tonight, it's completely different.
But on the nose and on the palate, to me, it's been the most. I'm trying to find the right adjective to use. I mean, I've enjoyed it the most there.
I think it's the most exciting.
Yeah, I mean,
of what we've tried.
and it's I'd say the most unexpected. What I'm getting on the palate when you do that swishing and everything around, what it does to your mouth. I don't know that I've had a spirit that kind of, other than Tingala, that kind of makes me feel that way. But Tingala's not in a good way. This is in a good way. The only thing I would say on this one is I'm not getting that kind of that, and it may be unfair to kind of look for that finish, that in your chest, that kind of nice, warm kind of feeling that you get.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that was a 17-year difference. Okay, we went from petite champagne to grand champagne. Now we're going to make a 22-year jump.
Holy crap.
We're going to a 70-year-old cognac.
Okay.
Okay, harvested in 1950.
I hope to make it to 70.
So single vintage, so single harvest, 1950.
Finally one older than me.
That's true.
Why are you laughing?
I mean, you don't look at all your age.
Thank you.
Now this one,
Much older.
I was getting ready to ask you how much older do I look. Darryl, very nice of you to do this tonight.
absolutely,
thank you.
When
absolutely,
you got a big weekend coming up.
I do.
You're a big fan of let's see, not the Nittany Lions, but you'll be at that game.
I will be at that game,
But not a fan of the Nittany Lions.
No, I will be the other cats on the field. So,
Bo, what's his name?
Bo Nix, quite the quarterback
Yeah.
for the other team. So,
He's a junior this year.
I don't know. Just getting the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Either by injury or.
Oh wow.
All right, now this one, same thing. Give it a
Completely
second.
different.
But this one I get more of the raisin on here than the
is
big
the-
fruit punch.
Grand finale. Now I will say, you may be able to pick out things through what we've tasted tonight that you don't like, or if you don't like this, you're inherently wrong. This is one of the few times I'll say that, to where, I think every spirit, every wine, everything has its place, and people have preferences. If you don't like this, you're wrong. You're incorrect. It's not you're not right.
I mean, I could honestly tell you, I don't even know if I need to drink this. I could sit here and nose this all night.
It's amazing.
It is. But it doesn't have that burn your nostrils like you were talking about. This is
I'm wondering if our glasses have just been so inundated.
Yeah.
Because this one does that. Here, let me see something real quick. Yeah, I think it's just our glasses have been a little, but that's okay.
Okay. I don't want to waste this.
You're not going to waste it.
No.
Ooh.
I don't know why I keep swirling, dude.
So the other thing you can
It's
do,
a habit.
put your hand over the top
Okay.
and let the vapors build.
Yeah.
Just a minute. Just keep your hand over. But besides Auburn, Penn State, we've got we've got Auburn or Alabama, Florida.
Roll Tide.
Yeah, definitely.
They're gonna win.
Probably, yeah. You've got Virginia Tech and West Virginia, and then some other games.
Is there any other top 25 matchups this week?
I don't know. I was happy to see Texas, ranked 15th again, and then
Get thumped
because everybody loves to rank them.
Who was it who thumped them last week? It was
Arkansas beat that ass.
Welcome to the SEC, baby.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I just want to throw out there, Aggies are not allowed to say that yet.
Why?
I saw a lot of Aggies out there being like, "Welcome to the SEC." It's like you're new. Calm down. It's not time for you to say that yet.
Did you see the SEC short films?
I did.
Oh, that was hilarious.
That was hysterical.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Right. Ooh. There you go. So now
there it is.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So that should be filling the old factory now.
Yep.
Woo, I like that. I think it's a good balance between all of the different flavors that we've had tonight.
Absolutely.
Some of the fruity, some of the darker, cherries and things like that.
So to your point, this is 70 years aged before it went into this bottle. So the people that harvested and distilled it never got to see what this turned into.
Yeah.
Right?
That's wild.
It's pretty cool.
So what they say that Louis got?
It's a blend of I think 25 to 100.
Yeah.
And then Richard Hennessy is 50 to 200.
But not 200 in a barrel. But
No, but it may be transferred to new. I mean, there's a lot of finesse in the game going on. So. But anyway, hey, I appreciate you guys having me on. This has been really nice. I hope you guys have enjoyed it.
I've absolutely enjoyed it, and I always love learning about. You've had me buy a couple of bottles and try some things, which have been fantastic. But to kind of dive a little deeper and learn a little bit more about this is what I enjoy, and hopefully the you need a towel or anything. And hopefully the listeners enjoyed this as well. I'm sure they did. And breaking into, if they're not already into cognac, it's definitely something that you should get into and start to enjoy.
Yeah. It's an unbelievable spirit. And think about this. And now I don't know how much all of these bottles cost. I know that.
Well, I was going to mention that.
Oh yeah. So
I want to get into these last two.
1973 is $375.
Okay.
And this one's $725.
But when you think about, the 2020 William LaRue Weller is going, what, 1650?
1800.
1800?
That's stupid.
It's stupid.
You buy two of these.
You can buy two of these.
Yeah. I as much as I like William LaRue Weller, I would save my money and buy that.
So, speaking of that stupidity, the Tornado Survivor, whatever bullshit's like $20,000. Cognac from when Napoleon was around is $10,000.
From when Napoleon was around.
That's 220 years ago.
Wow.
There is a very unique taste to this. I'm getting
everything. Every note that has ever been noted is in this.
It's a lot.
It's a whole lot.
I'm getting a hair of lychee. Like in a good way.
Okay, that's just freaking delicious.
How great is that?
Oh, super good.
Nothing like
I'm
not being facetious or dramatic when I say it. Nothing compares to that.
Well, and I keep doing and I might be wrong to do this. I might be missing out, but I'm taking a little sip and just taking a sip like I normally would.
Sure.
But then I'm following your rule of swishing and just kind of seeing the difference and how this opens up and how it changes. That swishing is just. It makes it makes all the difference in the world to how you enjoy this.
Every drink you take is different.
Yeah.
There's different notes. It's evolving the entire time.
Chocolate, too.
This is what cognac is.
That's great.
This is absolutely fantastic, and thank you so much for sharing this, man.
For sure.
Where does this rank? Like, where does this rank for you in like spirits? Like this particular 1950. Put you on the spot and don't impress me. I'm genuinely wondering.
It's hard to compare spirits in my opinion, but I would say this is in the top 10 of the things that I've ever tried.
I would say the more I drink cognac, and I'll even throw Armagnac in there, I'm finding more and more that I really enjoy that spirit. And this 1950 and the 1973 both have just absolutely blown me away, and I like them both. Now, I'm not as versed as you two in trying some really high-end whiskeys and bourbons and things like that, but this 1950, for me, probably ranks in the top 5 things I've ever had. Maybe top 3.
So what I'd like to do is after dinner, I mean, obviously end the podcast, but what I'd like to do is take a break, eat some food. After dinner, come back and revisit the 50.
Okay.
Sit down in the podcast in 2 minutes.
We can throw it on again.
Revisit the 50.
Okay.
After our palates have been cleansed, we've eaten.
Yeah.
Do it one more time and see what it tastes, and see if there's a difference for you guys.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
All right, well, let's do that. Let's go eat some food.
Man.
Absolutely.
Cleanse our palate and get these glasses cleaned out and make sure this spirit is presented the way it's supposed to be. So
Yeah.
we'll be back in just a bit. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I'm full.
I'm so full.
I'm ready to eat some more.
Are you really?
Yeah. What's for second dinner?
Are you a hobbit?
Yeah. No, that was delicious. Thank you, Rob. That was amazing food.
Thank you, Darryl, for
no.
bringing these fantastic cognacs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Amazing. Gosh.
things I never thought I'd get to, drink and enjoy and experience. So very nice of you to bring those.
Absolutely, of course, anytime.
Okay, are we finishing this 1950 without you? I feel kind of
No,
bad.
it's okay. I'm on the struggle bus.
The struggle. You've got a flight to catch.
I do have a flight to catch, but that's not why I'm on the struggle bus.
Why are you on the struggle bus?
I'm still coming back to America time.
Oh, from Italy time.
Italy.
Full. I don't think I've slept.
Well, we need you on your A game for tomorrow because you've got Jello shot duty.
I do. I'm going to make some good Jello shots. Some
Oh,
blue
nice.
and orange Jello shots. Yeah, for those northern people.
Okay, to your point earlier about the glass kind of affecting the 1950, it definitely did because now burning my nose, I'm definitely getting.
Oh yeah.
Is it?
Oh, big time.
Yeah. So clean gut. So
Woo, big time.
yeah. So stick your nose like real deep in there and take a huge whiff, and you're going to be uncomfortable for a minute.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Sorry, couldn't help myself.
Sorry, I took a big whiff.
Took a big whiff. Yeah. So
Wow.
That is nice. That is really nice.
So yeah, we've stepped away. I think our palates were really
fatigued?
impacted. Yeah, a little definitely palate fatigue. And cognac a lot of cognac will do that. Much more, I think, than many other spirits. You know, like you guys just did the Four Roses deal, right? So by the end of 8, 9,
10.
10. So by the time you're doing 10 Four Roses, you're burnt out, man.
Oh yeah.
And you say 10, and then you go back and taste through again.
Taste others, yeah. You're so, but as expressive and powerful as cognac is, it's very difficult to go through what we did in the amount of time we did. So it was nice. So I think having some food, stepping back, and then coming back at this 1950 fresh, it'll be a nice stomach settler for you, which is what it's intended to be.
I need it after a light meal like that.
There we go.
It's
So yeah,
it's a Thursday. I wanted to keep it light.
Yeah.
So
that's
same
good.
thing, take a swig and swish it around, like get it and swish it for a while, like several seconds, really get it all in there nice and deep black.
That's what she said.
Wow. That is powerful. Holy crap. It's like chocolate and raisins and
Very, very diverse, very
everything. Citrus and this
But there's a lot
and
of
that.
fruit on it, too.
Fruit. Yeah, everywhere.
and if you take another sip and you do it all again, it's going to be completely different. So I would expect it's a much different experience than we had when we finished up earlier.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you like that, Sandra? Did you like it?
It's tasty.
What's the proof on this? 80?
80.
I would say it drinks like it's got a better finish than
Oh, way
better
bigger
proof than
finish.
80, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, if you tasted this blind, you wouldn't think it's 80 proof.
There are damn near 140 proof bourbons that don't have that finish.
I mean, this is the finish you get on this. I'm amazed at this being 80 proof to get what you get on this on the palate. The nose is just, the nose on certain things can be fantastic, but then you're disappointed on the palate. This doesn't disappoint. I mean, on the palate and on the finish, this is fantastic.
Finishes extremely well.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop. I mean, you get several minutes. The flavors are constantly evolving.
Okay.
It's
there's a wine thief.
So, Yana, make sure you swish it around, whole mouth, like multiple seconds. And
You didn't do that. Go. Do it. Swish it. Swish it good.
La Pluma. Okay, that's a totally different experience. You're exactly right. After getting our palate kind of off of, getting some food and letting it kind of
What do you want to say? Okay, hold on. We've got somebody who's sniping in here.
It makes me think of a Haagen-Dazs rum raisin ice cream.
Oh, well, there you go.
that's a good compliment.
Yeah.
Sandra thinks it's black licorice and plums.
Yeah. I don't think there's
It's just
any,
a variety of things that are in it. It's
so
just an
much.
explosion
Yeah.
of things.
And that's the beauty of it. I mean, there's nothing like the evolution of flavor that happens with this between each sip, and then each individual sip is from the moment you swallow to 5 minutes later, you're getting different notes. It's just constantly changing.
Yeah. What's that?
Bitter chocolate, like chocolate.
Yeah, there is some like cocoa powder for sure.
Sure.
But like really any answer isn't going to be wrong
No, not at all.
because there's so much.
Backup bottle of this.
I don't. Actually, this is my. Now, granted, I think I've gone through 5. Over the
Have you really?
Past couple of years, yeah.
Now,
Oh, wow.
You've obviously bought a lot from them, but you've been there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, man, thank you for coming on, Darryl, and kind of taking us through cognac. I've had a great time kind of exploring and learning, and what a treat to be able to taste some of these things from the 90s and 70s and 50.
Yeah,
For
amazing.
sure. Well, I'll be going there next year, so if you guys want to go, I'll be organizing a trip. So
Can we have some say in who goes with us?
sure.
I'm kidding.
Does that mean I'm not invited?
I don't think this is a sponsored
me
trip.
and Darryl can talk later, but it might come up.
All right.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me, man. I had a really good time. Thank you so much.
Yana will send you pictures.
Oh yeah. Well, that's cool.
No, that was a lot of fun, Darryl. Thank you
Yeah.
very much
Yeah,
for
man.
sharing, man.
Yeah,
That was
very
a good
generous.
time.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Any last words, Carter?
I'm gonna be drinking some more cognac.
Okay. Is that
Yeah.
the right way to say it?
Probably not.
I like it.
I like it.
It's the Alabama way to say it.
There you go. That works.
Cognac.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey in Your Own Backyard. Until our next episode, enjoy your next pour.